In this video, we proceed with our narration of William Walker Atkinson's Practical Mental Influence and Mental Fascination. In the preceding chapter, Chapter 2, Thought Waves, we ended with the sentence, "Such knowledge brings strength." This is Chapter 3, Mental Induction, involving how the thought vibrations set up induction in other minds, connections among thoughts, electricity, and magnetism, and how mental states are transferred. Mental induction. As we stated in the preceding chapter, the phenomena of mental influence bears a striking analogy to that of electrical or magnetic energy. Well, not only is this so in the phase of wave motion and transmission, but also in the phase of induction, as we shall see presently. In physical science, the term induction is used to indicate that quality in a manifestation of energy which tends to reproduce in a second object the vibrations manifesting in the first object, without direct contact between the two bodies. A magnet will induce magnetism in another object removed from it in space. An electrified object, it will tend to produce similar vibrations in another object by induction over great spaces. Heat waves traveling along the ether tended to produce heat vibrations in objects far removed, notably in the case of the sun and the earth. Even sound waves will affect other objects in this way, as in the well-known instance of the glass or vase singing in response to the musical note sounded afar off. In fact, we see and hear by processes similar to those described. And in this same manner, do the thought waves carry the vibrations of the mind, sending them forth to great distances, or lesser ones, tending to set up similar vibrations in the minds of other persons within their field of force. Thus, a person feeling a strong degree of anger will pour forth waves of that degree of mental vibration, which, coming in contact with the brains of other persons, tend to set up a similar feeling or emotion, and thus cause the person to feel cross or peevish, or even to manifest a similar angry state of mind. Excuse me. We all know how easily a fight is started by a very angry person in a room sending forth violent vibrations. One has but to remember the instances of mob violence to see how easily the contagion of hate and anger spread among people who allow themselves to be influenced. And not only is this true of undesirable emotions and feelings, but also of desirable ones. The influence of a good man who happens to be strong mentally spreads among those around him, influencing them for good. Orators, actors, preachers, and teachers send forth strong mental currents, which tended to produce mental conditions on the part of their hearers, corresponding to the feeling held by the mind of the speaker. When you remember how this speaker swayed your feelings, or how that actor made you weep with pity, shiver with fear, or laugh with joy, you will see how mental induction acts. But not only is this true when we are in the actual presence of the person sending out the thought waves, but it is equally true that we are influenced by persons far removed from us in space, often without their knowledge or intent, although sometimes, in the case of one who understands the principle, with full knowledge and intent. The ether with which, space is filled carries these thought waves in all directions, and the surface of the earth, particularly in the densely occupied portions, is filled with these waves. These waves, carrying the mental vibrations, coming in contact with each other, tend to set up combinations on one hand, or else neutralize each other on the other hand. That is to say, if two sets of waves of a similar nature meet, there is likely to be a combination formed between them, just as between two chemicals having an affinity for each other. In this way, the mental atmospheres of places, towns, houses, etc. are formed. On the other hand, if two currents of opposing vibrations come into contact with each other, there will be manifested a conflict between the two, in which each will lose power in proportion to its weakness. And the result will be either a neutralization of both, or else a combination having vibrations of an average rate. For instance, if two currents of mental energy meet, one being a thought of love and the other of hate, they will neutralize each other if they are equal. Or if one be stronger than the other, it will persist, but robbed of much of its strength. If it were not for this neutralizing effect, we would be largely at the mercy of stray currents of thought. Nature protects us in this way, and also by rendering us immune to a considerable extent. But nevertheless, we are affected by these waves to a considerable extent, unless we have learned to throw them off by a knowledge of the laws and an enforcement of them by practice. We all know how great waves of feeling spread over a town, city, or country, sweeping people off their balance. Great waves of political enthusiasm, or war spirit, or prejudice for or against certain people, or groups of people, sweep over places and cause men who act in a manner that they will afterward regret when they come to themselves and consider their acts in cold blood. They will be swayed by demagogues or magnetic leaders who wish to gain their votes or patronage, and they will be led into acts of mob violence or similar atrocities by yielding to these waves of contagious thought. On the other hand, we all know how great waves of religious feeling sweep over a community upon the occasion of some great revival, excitement, or fervor. The effect of these thought waves, so far as the power of induction is concerned, of course depends very materially upon the strength of the thought or feeling being manifested in the mind sending them forth. The majority of persons put but little force into their mental manifestations. But here and there is to be found a thinker whose thought waves are practically a stream of living will, and which of course have a very strong inductive effect upon the minds of others with whom the waves come into contact. But it likewise follows that a number of persons thinking along the same lines will produce a great volume of power by a combination of their thought currents into great streams of mental force. And then again, there is another feature of the case that we must not lose sight of, and that is the attraction between minds, by virtue of which one draws to himself the thought waves of others whose thoughts are in accord with his own. The contrary is true, for there is a repulsion between the minds of persons and the thought waves of others antagonistic to their thoughts. To quote a well-worn and much used expression to illustrate this truth, like attracts like, and birds of a feather flock together. There is ever in operation this marvelous law of attraction and repulsion of mental energy. Persons allowing their thoughts to run along certain lines and permitting the feelings to be expressed in certain ways draw to themselves the thought waves and the mental influences of others keyed to the same mental keynote. And likewise, they repel the waves and influences of an opposing nature. This is an important fact to remember in one's everyday life. Good attracts good and repels evil. Evil attracts evil and repels good. The predominant mental attitude serves to attract similar influences and to repel the opposing ones. Therefore, watch carefully the character and the nature of your thoughts. Cultivate the desirable ones and repress the undesirable ones. Verily, as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. Some thought waves sent forth with but little strength travel slowly and do not proceed very far from their place of emanation, but creep along like some smoke or fog, lazily and yielding. Other thoughts, charged with a greater intensity of desire or will, dart forth vigorously like an electric spark and often travel great distances. The weak thought waves do not last a very long time, but fade away or become neutralized or dissipated by stronger forces. But the strong thoughts persist for a long time, retaining much of their vitality and energy. In the same manner, the thought waves of a person will continue to vibrate around him wherever he goes, and those coming in contact with him will be impressed by the character of his vibrations in this way. Some men send forth gloomy vibrations, which you feel when you come into contact with them. Others radiate good cheer, courage, and happiness, which conditions are induced in those with whom they come in contact. Many people manifest these qualities so strongly that one can notice the effect the moment such persons enter a room. They carry their atmospheres with them, and the same is induced in the minds of others around them. In the same way, some people carry with them vibrations of willpower and masterfulness, which beat upon the minds of others, making them feel the power of such persons and conquering their own willpower and changing their desires. Others manifest a strong power of fascination or attraction in a similar manner, which tends to draw others to them and to their desires and wishes. Not only does this principle operate in the phase of general mental atmospheres, but also in the phase of direct personal influence. All forms of mental influence operate along the lines of mental induction, as herein described. The principle is the same in all cases and instances, although the manner of operation varies according to the particular phase of the phenomena manifested. Remember this as we proceed, and you will be able to understand the subject much better. Chapter 4 will be mental concentration. We will commence with that in the next video. The first sentence of Chapter 4, mental concentration, is: the two principal factors in the manifestation of mental influence in all of its forms are what is known as, number 1, concentration, and number 2, mental imaging. Now, if you have not yet subscribed to this channel, please pause the video right now or immediately following it. Go ahead and subscribe and activate the notification bell feature while you're at it. If you like this video, please remember to give it a thumb up. If you comment, which I welcome, comment courteously. Share the joy of the channel with others. This is the Ramki Ramacharaka, and I am Turk Strongman. Thank you for selecting this video on mental induction. In Practical Mental Influence and Mental Fascination by William Walker Atkinson, be well. See you in the next video.